All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're talking about something that's on pretty much every parent's and teacher's mind right now. How in the world do we keep our kids safe with AI everywhere? Well, there's a simple framework that can really help. So let's start with a big question. Who is really teaching your child? Think about it. When your kid is quietly working on homework and turns to a chatbot for help, who's the teacher at that moment? Because, these AI tools are quickly becoming this silent, unvetted educator in our homes and classrooms. And that brings us to this new reality. Our kids, they're Generation AI. I mean, they're the very first generation to grow up where AI isn't some sci-fi movie concept. Nope, it's just part of the furniture. It's in their social media, their learning apps, even their toys. And honestly, the research is pretty clear. We adults and the policies we make are really struggling to keep pace. Okay, so how common is this really? Well, get this. A recent UK survey found that over 80% of teenagers are already using AI for schoolwork. That's not a small number. We're talking 4 out of every 5 students in a classroom. And sure, they'll tell you it makes them faster, but that speed, it definitely comes with a hidden cost. And that cost has a name. Researchers call it synthetic cognition. It's basically what happens when we start outsourcing our thinking. You know that feeling, that productive struggle when you're trying to figure something out? That's actually where the deep learning happens. When we rely too much on AI, we can just bypass that whole process. And that can weaken the exact critical reasoning skills our kids need to be building for the future. All right, so when we talk about AI safety, it can feel like this huge, kind of vague problem, right? So to make it something we can actually tackle, we're going to break it down into 3 really concrete areas, things that show up in a kid's everyday life. This helps us go from feeling totally overwhelmed to seeing the specific challenges we need to face. So here they are, the 3 dimensions. First, there's informational safety, basically what's true and what's not. Then, privacy and datafication, all about protecting their personal info. And finally, emotional and relational safety. And this one covers the really serious stuff, from cyberbullying to online grooming. Let's just quickly unpack each one. First up, informational safety. You've probably heard that AI models can hallucinate, which is just a fancy way of saying they make stuff up. And the scary part is, they do it so convincingly. It sounds plausible, but it's just false. For a kid, that can plant a wrong idea in their head that's really hard to correct later on. Okay, next up is privacy. This is a big one. Pretty much every single interaction a child has with an AI is logged and analyzed. And here's the kicker. UNESCO has warned that the rules for how this data gets used are, well, they're dangerously unclear. We're basically letting companies build these huge digital files on our kids without really knowing who gets to see them or what they'll be used for. And finally, emotional and relational safety. And look, this is where it gets really serious. Generative AI can be weaponized, it can be used to create abusive content, to help predators groom children, or to supercharge cyberbullying. It's a harsh reality for sure, but it's one we absolutely have to confront head on. So if you're listening to all this and feeling a little behind or maybe even panicked, you are definitely not alone. There's this massive, well-documented gap between how fast kids are adopting these tools and how prepared we, the adults in their lives, feel to guide them. And the research backs this up. Study after study shows the exact same thing. Parents and teachers know AI is here to stay. They see it's inevitable, but they feel totally underinformed and under-resourced. They want to have these important conversations with their kids, but they honestly just don't know where to start. Well, if you don't know where to start, you are in exactly the right place. Because right now, we're going to turn that feeling of anxiety into a clear plan. We're going to do it with a simple, super memorable tool called the SAFE framework. Now, what's so great about the SAFE framework is that it's not another complicated set of rules you have to memorize. Think of it more like a practical lens or a mental checklist that you can pull out anytime you see a child using an AI tool, whether you're in the classroom or just hanging out at the kitchen table. So let's break it down. S is for supervise. Simple, right? Keep AI use out in the open in shared spaces. A is for ask. This means we have to model that critical thinking, always questioning what the AI spits out. F is for filter. Use tools that are vetted, that have strong safety features. And finally, E is for educate. We need to talk openly about what AI can't do, its limitations, just like we all learned to do with the internet. Okay, so that's the theory. But what does this actually look like day to day? Let's walk through two super realistic scenarios, one at school and one at home, to see how you can bring this safe framework to life. So picture this. In the classroom, a teacher can project an AI's answer and ask the whole class, hey, can we actually trust this? They treat it like a hypothesis to be tested, not like a fact. Then at home, a parent can do something I like to call arguing with the bot. You intentionally try to trip it up with your child to find its mistakes. See what both of these do? They shift the kid from being a passive consumer of information to an active, critical user. So let's really dig into that classroom example. It's just 4 simple steps. 1, the teacher projects an AI's answer for everyone to see. 2, they ask the students, okay, if this was in a textbook, what would you double check? 3, they annotate it together, highlighting the shaky claims. And 4, they debrief. When is AI useful and when do you need to trust your own brain? It's just a brilliant way to teach critical thinking for this new era. And what about at home? It's all about the conversation. First, you provoke an error from the AI on purpose. Then, you probe your child's thinking. Do you agree with that? Can you solve it a different way? Then you partner up, find the mistake together, and talk about how AI can be misleading. And finally, you frame it correctly. See? AI is like a clever study buddy, but it can be wrong. It's not the teacher. So, if you only remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. The big takeaway is safe. Supervise their screen time, ask critical questions with them, filter the tools they're using, and educate them on the limitations. These 4 simple actions are your starting point. That's it. Look, the goal here isn't to become an AI expert overnight. It's just to start the conversation. So I'll leave you with this question. What's the very first conversation about AI you're going to have this week?